um, yeah, most of us we're editing hundreds of photos at a time, and it just doesn't make any sense to have to upload, process one photo, and then like having to copy the adjustment layer, and it's just very simple. It's just very very simple. So, and this literally was created by photographers for photographers to be a more efficient tool than using Photoshop itself. Photoshop, only times I'll use that when I'm within my editing process is if I'm doing like augmentation, some design stuff, or really heavy post processing things that require a bit more fine detail tuning rather than just Lightroom, which is really focused on correction. Lightroom is for corrections. Photoshop is for augmentation, if that makes sense.
Cool. Okay. Well, I'm about to
So,
shut up and save my questions.
no, yeah, for sure, for sure. And so we're just gonna really kind of go over just the process. And again, I think that's like the best way to kind of go over it, right? Just kind of like watch my process, and then we edit, walk through, and step by step everything that I'm doing, why I'm doing it, and then also, for this virtual session and all the virtual sessions, this is a way more open, free style of formatting. If you guys are chilling, you're in front of your computer, you got your phone, you're not doing shit, pull out a photo, edit along, um, and adjust these things in real time so you can really see, right? This especially goes for my people who are there in person. If you were there in person, you probably took a lot of notes. Cool. Now, maybe try to apply those things and work alongside with me just to kind of like help you see the differences and how these things affect, because I'm going to edit things very specifically based on the photo that I'm using, but might be very different for your particular photo that you may use, and just having this the explanation and the guidance alongside you using the trial and error in the moment could be very helpful. All right, so one thing that I like to do is, right, and I've been editing all day, so your boy been kind of, wait, is there a way, where's my, nope, wrong slide. Okay, let me see, where's my face? Did I get rid of my face? Oh no, I'm right here. Bam. I thought I lost myself. So I'm about to make me big. Boom. All right, bow. So, I've been editing all day just because that's my life now, and um, so I got some stuff kind of already queued up, ready to go. So we're just gonna pop right into Lightroom and see that. We'll pop right into Lightroom, and also too, like I said, by this point, everyone should have Lightroom installed on whatever device that they have, and they have a free version, which the only restriction really with the free version, I think it's like some catalog options may be restricted, but it's mainly going to be your spot removal and your masking. Uh, your masking tabs are going to be the only things that really has issues with, right? So here's a really cool thing too, that and one of the best functions of Lightroom that I really enjoy is, excuse me, the cataloging, and then just the metadata that it maintains, right? Um, what's really cool about Lightroom and working within Lightroom is that it is non-destructive editing, right? What that means is that no matter how many edits or what you do to an image, um, the image, the original image is always going to be there. It's there in the data, right? So for example, right, we come to image right here, right? We click this, bam, we see all the editing, all the stuff we put on this image, right? If I hit for me, it's the backslash and then like the little line slash, or I think it's forward slash. Um, yeah, if I hit the forward slash button, it takes me back to the original image, so I can see that. I just use that as kind of like before and after, right? Um, that's literally all it means to use non-destructive editing. And what's cool about that is that, as you can see, if I go to the side and I look at all my full catalog, right, I can look at recent edits, all my photos. I got 70,000 photos currently in this one. I can search up photos by date. They have some cool things where I didn't think I enabled it yet. I don't have people enabled because I don't really be doing that. But you can do that. You can hit enable. My Google Images, my Google Photos app does that amazingly. Like literally, if I go to, hold on, I don't know if I should go. I ain't gonna lie to you. But if I go to my Google Images and pull up that tab, it'll automatically select images and like faces of people, and then just like it'll create these categories. Really, really cool stuff. So that cataloging feature is also a huge, plus for utilizing Lightroom in that regard, right? So we're gonna go here. Bam! I uploaded these yesterday. I just didn't get a chance to edit them yet, and so we're gonna go through these together, right? Boom. So, um, whenever you're editing, right? Here's you're gonna there's an order of operations, low key, like PEMDAS, and I think it's probably one of the most optimal ways to kind of approach the editing process. That way, one, you're not hustling backwards. A lot of times we find ourselves we'll do this and then we do this and this fucks this up and we gotta change this or we gotta go back to that. And ideally, what you want is you want to get into a place where you're editing, you're moving quickly, you're moving efficiently, and you're not backtracking, right? That's what you don't want to do. You don't want to backtrack. So you want to go with what I call it's CCF, right? CCF. I didn't coin the term, but it's just something I really like. It's a great function. Um, but it's uh, color, then correction, then you finalize, right? When we say color, right, we look at this image. Um, it looks okay, and that's the thing about photography and like how we take images and when we get into the post process is that there's there's so many small differences and things that are may not be necessarily accurate that we can't see with our naked eye, right? So like we look at this image and I color balanced it pretty decently in camera, but there are always going to be some stuff in terms of color that's going to be a little bit off, whether it's our camera settings, maybe color profile, maybe some, in camera profiles that we may have selected. And so, what you want to do is we want to find a place in which we can stabilize our image, correct the colors, and bring things to what I like to call neutral, right? Before we get in and start adding all the funky stuff and getting creative, let's bring the image back to how things looked naturally. And then we can use that, baseline of things being neutral and natural. Then we can bounce off of that to get the image that we're looking for, right? So what we want to go through is we look at, all this stuff, exposure, contrast. We're going to skip past that. We're going to go right to color, right? Now, for those who don't understand what white balance is, white balance just refers to the combination of colors in your image that creates, the sense of uh temperature or tint or just the tones, curves, all of that stuff, right? And so we look here. Temperature always refers to either warm or cool. Warm is represented with oranger tones, right? Yellows, things like that. Cool is represented with cooler tones like blues and greens and purple or whatever. Um, Tint, you get your magenta, right? And you got your green. And then we have vibrance and saturation, right? Vibrance and saturation, those are more having to do with the intensity of colors and how much of that color is represented. But before we do that, we want to make sure we balance our white balance. We balance the colors of our image, right? So all colors in the world are a combination of something between these yellow, blues, pinks, and oranges, right? So if we come into a room and you've probably seen it before, you might have seen an image and it might have like it's like this image kind of green, it has like a green tint to it, right? You might because you're in a room with a bunch of, you know, green fluorescent, windows or something like that, and you want to balance it and you want the room to get back to that neutral look. You use your white balance to kind of figure that out, right? So as you see, if I were to bump the blue up, there's an arena where it gets too cool. But if we bring it down, it kind of feels like, oh, it's kind of natural. It's kind of natural. Same can happen with our greens and our purples. But you can try to eyeball it for you all. Well, my suggestion would be more than anything. My suggestion would be to use the auto white balance picker, right? That's going to be your best option for making sure you get a accurate white balance pick, right? So you hit the little eyedropper right here, boom. Once you click that, now it's giving you an option to go in and select the color you use as a reference for your white balance. The color I suggest, look for grays and like neutral tones because what that'll do is that gray will give you a white balance is going to help you out. That's why, on movie sets they have like a little gray box and you put it in front of the thing and like the little thing that goes action, click, click, like those are like colors, and sometimes they'll have stuff on that that helps the camera balance colors, the color correction people, right, who are editing, that helps them balance the colors. Um, at certain sporting events, right? Like in boxing or other sports, you'll see a lot of photographers like looking down or like trying to, they'll be like shooting really close up against an object. Oftentimes, that's them finding something in the scene that has a gray or neutral tone, and they're setting their color balance based on that color. So as you can see, right, if we use the color picker and we click this green, it's assuming that the space is like predominantly green, so it puts a magenta tint on it. And if you look here, you can see it's corresponding with that, right? Wherever we click, if we click red, what do you think is going to happen? It's going to assume that there's more red in the space, so it might add a lot of blue, right? Exactly. So that's why the color picker is so important, because the color picker helps you is helping you determine how much color is abundant and how much is not enough. And so by using a gray image, what that helps is kind of like, it's just a more accurate way of looking at it. So like this is kind of gray, you know, it still has a little bit of a tint that I may not like. Right up here, this is a cool gray that we can use, right? Not as much. Let's go to this corner. Bam, right here. That looks good. And of course, this is not like a test. You know, it's just kind of like what makes the most sense to you, what feels balanced. And as you can see, very slight adjustments because we weren't too far off. And if you look, if I do like the back and forth, the before and after, you can kind of really see it when you do it that way, right? We're going to zoom in and kind of get an idea. Like you can, for those who have like a keen eye, you can see that slight adjustment in the warmth, right? Y'all can see that. Who sees it? Don't lie. Nobody, just me, for sure. And so, as you can see right here, very micro adjustments. You might have other scenes that require a much larger adjustment to balance it. Awesome, thank you. But then you might have some, scenes that are very slight. So this is like a -6 plus 3, right? No, no worries, no worries. So we got our colors balanced, right? We don't necessarily want to go in and add any vibrance or saturation or anything like that yet. We're just kind of, remember, the first C is just color, getting our color right. Um, Now what we want to do is we want to go into a little bit of correction, right? Immediately off top, I see that this is a little off, right? We got some compositional issues here. This line lets me know it's a little crooked. I want to bring in that crop a little bit more. So right here we're up here in our adjustments tab, basics, light, right? We skip past the light stuff. We went straight to a color. Now I'm going to go up to my crop and rotate. Now they have the same thing. They have some cool auto rotate options, which can be decent, right? Like that's cool, like a little slight adjustment. To me, that's cropping and rotations, like that's always going to be seasoned to taste, right? And like just like everything else, or most everything else in our class, is that I'm not telling you what to do. I'm just giving you suggestions on my process on what helps me move efficiently and helps, inspire like that really successful shot that I'm looking for, right? So as I'm looking at this scene, I'm looking at all this stuff around, and like this shit don't really complement. You got the thing, like, I like the framing, I like where some of the people are standing, but we don't need all of this. Some of this information doesn't, not only does it not add to the story, but some of it can be distracting and can take away. So I'm cutting all this away. I want to keep him centered for this shot. Don't want too much of this up here. We can go in a little bit more, like something like this here, because I don't want to go in too tight. And like that's cool. Boom. Right? And maybe we can probably center it a little bit better, like right here. Bam. I like that. Cool. Now, as we're in our corrections phase, we got our crop, we got our rotate. What I like to do is I can skip all the way down. We're still in our edit tab, right? It should still have the same symbol for those who are working on mobile as well. I like to bring myself all the way down to sharpening. For those working on mobile, that's most likely, and let me pull up my phone just to be sure. For those working on mobile, it's not going to be in your edits tab. Yours is going to probably be in detail. I think that's the name of the widget, right? I'm pulling it up right now just to make sure I'm not mistaken. So you go to edit. Yep. So once you go to edit, you scroll all the way to the right and you go to detail. I'm gonna find a way to stream my phone as well. Okay, bet. Yep, it's in detail, right? Can y'all see that? So once you get into edit, you're gonna scroll It's gonna be all the way to the right, all the way to the right. Details like a little triangle for sure. Um, and so I like to just go ahead and just get my sharpening process. And this is for this particular, approach I like to do for, I mean, pretty much all of my edits, but because I'm a event photographer mainly and I shoot a bunch of stuff and, you know, I like to batch edit. And this is the kind of like a batch editing process. So I get my sharpening right down here, manual noise reduction. And of course, it goes without saying, red means dead, right? Don't shoot the red barrels. Don't run the red lights. So when you're using your sharpening or any type of tools like this, if it has a red slider, it's letting you know that you're getting into an area that's like extremely intense and you're compromising the quality of your image. So I like to come like right up here, right before shit start getting red, like the most, because I want to, get that sharpening. Um, and then manual noise reduction. That is noise reduction, self-explanatory, but it also, the way that I like to use it, I use it in tandem with my sharpening. That way it can soften out some of the rigidity that it happens to be bringing when I use sharpening, right? So if I bring my sharpness down, you see what happens? You lose all that definition, when you bring your sharp, when you keep it down, but as you go up, you get the definition, you get the detail, but it's crunchy, right? Um, Noise reduction, as you can see, if we go to the extreme, makes everything look like Play-Doh, like a oil painting, right? So what I like to do is, as not only am I bringing in my sharpness, it brings out the detail and the definition, and the luminance can soften out some of the rigidity, but without losing the definition, right? So just a little before and after, as you can see, bam, just a little bit. And I like to find when I'm doing these types of things, look for areas that really are going to be affected more than anything, right? So if we zoom all the way in, look at the hat. This is where you can really see like how some of the detail and like the definition is lost and recovered, right? Even in the back right here when you look at the bottles. So that's what we're looking for, right? Getting some details. Now going another step further, this is also very like a personal adjustment that I like to use. I like to come up to my effects tab, and for your phone, the effects tab I'm pretty certain is right next door. Yep, exactly. It's right next to it. The little square with the border around it. I like to come in, add my texture. Now, texture isn't sharpness. It's not sharpness, and I gotta be very clear on what I'm doing, even though it's not the typical process. Texture does almost exactly that. Like it helps add that definition. As you can see, it kind of helps with like isolating and increasing some contrast in the colors. If we put it on the max, as you can see, this looks like ass. This looks terrible, right? Horrible augmentation and like distortion of like the colors and the relationship between the details. So I don't like to use it too much. I just add like a little bit just to kind of like help help the sharpness, because we use the sharpness, but then we also use noise reduction to soften it out. And my goal is always just to create clarity, sharpness, and vision. Same thing with clarity as well. If we bump that all the way to the top, it makes everything look super ashy, crazy. So we don't want to do these things too much. Um, and there are circumstances in which using a bunch of clarity or a bunch of texture can be cool, but that's very specific to a certain type of subject matter. So what I do is I just bump it up just a tiny bit, no more than like 15, right? And so, what I like to do is just it just provides a degree of sharpness, clarity, and adds that definition, right? So here's a wider view. As you can see, all we did was color and a little bit of clarity. And we're gonna zoom back in just to see what I mean, right? So we look at my guy, right? Let's zoom out a little bit. We're gonna go to 100, and we just go back and forth. As you can see, just like already like that fuzziness, unclear, and really the fuzziness and unclear, it's mostly a mistake from my part, because as you can see, this back shelf is what's really in focus. So I missed my focus. So that's why he's really fuzzy like that. Um, but we were able to just kind of bring that life back and a little bit of sharpness to him. It's not going to be pristine, but it's close enough, right? So that's what that's for, right? That's what that's for. So we colored and we corrected. We corrected. Now it's time to finalize and kind of add those extra finishing touches. Um, for a shot like this, right? It's very dark. We got a lot of atmospheric lights, kind of moody, kind of vibey, and just the way that I process these images, these are I like to process these with a kind of a vintagey looking flair. Definitely a bit more stylized than I would a typical clean edit. And we'll have a moment where we do talk a little bit about the clean edit, and we'll go through that after this image. But what I'm always looking for is I'm trying to create balance in my image, and like bring it back to a sense in which it looked like how it felt and how it looked in that moment. And then once I get it down back to that, back to a realistic look, then I can add some of that extra funk. Just off top, when I look at an image like this, right, the blacks are just really, really deep and rich. And that was necessary to shoot because there was so much light here in order to have a better relationship visually between the lights in this area and the darks in this area. The choice was better that I underexposed so that the highlights were better visible. That way I can come into post production and bring my shadows up easier, right? Because it's a better method than to try to expose for the shadows and bring the lights down than expose for the light and bring the shadows up. Like it's just a different process. And I think it's a little bit easier to do the other. Um, so what I want to go in is we're going to look right here into our lights tab, right? So we got exposure. We know what exposure is. That is, you know, essentially how much of the light how much of the photo is visible. Now, this isn't the same exposure technically as we use in our cameras. It's a digital version of exposure. Essentially, just think of that as brightness because it doesn't really do anything else other than just make it brighter. It uses exposure because it's a foo-foo ass term, but it's no different than just brightness, right? Literally. See? Cool. Controls the brightness of your photos, right? So I generally don't like to use this too much if I don't have to. In most cases, I try to expose my image as needed in my camera. Um, and then if I need to just kind of bring up the shadows, I'll bring up the shadows. But for this practice, we're going to mess around with it a little bit. And I'll even show you how we do that, right? So if I were to expose my image, what you get is you get a lot of harsh lighting coming in, and it starts from, you know, where the lights are, and it just kind of explodes out from there. Creates a really ashy look, kind of just washed out. Not too good. That's why you really want to be really slight when it comes to that type of stuff. And there's a line to where, you know, there's certain levels of life that you can bring out of an image, but it's not infinite. So there's certain types of images that are just not savable, right? And if that's the case, either make the decision to get it out of there or, you know, be happy with what you got. Um, but when I do adjust my exposure, right? For example, I want to make sure that I'm not uh being unconscious of its effect on the overall harmony of the image. So a lot of times, just like how we're adjusting our exposure in camera, right? Our shutter speed, our aperture, our ISO, anytime you adjust one of those elements, you need to be conscious of how it's affecting the other two and make sure you're making accommodations to balance them all together. And in the very same way here, if I bring up my exposure, right, I'm not just brightening the image, I'm also washing it out, the colors. I'm also diminishing some of the contrast. I'm also, bringing up some of the shadows, bringing up some of the whites. So it's like it's more than just the one thing that you're adjusting. And so when I look at this image, I don't need to brighten the whites. I don't need to brighten the overall image. I just want to bring a little detail out of my shadows. So we can go to shadows, right? And we can look and see what they do. They adjust that mid area. So as you can see, I'm brightening up those areas where I lost detail and it's leaving the whites in some of the other areas unaffected. Amazing, amazing tool, right? That's exactly what it's for. So right here, that's what I want to do. I want to kind of bring up my shadows right here. This is pretty decent. And then honestly, even some of the excuse me, even some of the whites are a little harsh. So this would be a good opportunity for me to grab my highlights, bring those down, right? That's an unrealistic relationship between light. It won't look like that. So as we make our adjustments, we just got to make sure that we're not leaving the realm of realism because we don't want to give our images a look that is uncanny that people will distance themselves from, right? It's all about the harmony of the viewing process. And sometimes the way we create unrealistic relationships in our light makes people kind of distance themselves from our work. Not even consciously. It's like they just see it and they're like, I just don't really, it feels weird. And a lot of times it's because, and I'll see a lot of amateur photographers, you know, they're either like add like a bunch of sharpness, or they'll use like weird HDR filters, right? Like for example, if we brought our clarity up, you'll see like it just makes everything really sharp, and it's just like that don't look real. It doesn't look realistic. That's not how life looks. And unless you're doing something artistic and specifically stylized, you don't want to create a situation in which your work um, distances itself from people's ability to find the realism in it. So that's why we're going to make sure we keep some of these adjustments really slight and be really mindful of how it affects the entire image. So as we're working, we brought our shadows up, just as you can see right now. Boom. Slight difference. Now we balanced our image, right? We balanced the colors. Now as I'm looking at it personally, I really like the warmer tint, the warmer hue. So I'm going to kind of come back down to my temperature, and I'm gonna bring back the warmth in it, because I don't like it when it's cooler. In my own personal style, I really like a warmer hue on most of my stuff, right? So bam, we got our shadows. I want to bring up the exposure a little bit more, and then now I want to bring up the contrast, and then we have highlights, shadows, whites, blacks. You can think of our highlights as like that's the highest top whites, the brightest image parts of the image. Then you have your whites. That's like the one underneath it. It's kind of like mid. Your mid whites, that's going to be, this area. As you can see here. And now it looks like it may be affecting everything because there is very little white in this space, but there's a difference, right? So if we bring that to the max, it looks like that. If we bring our highlights to the max, it looks like that. So as you can see, the highlights really only affect the predominantly white space, right? So like right here in the table, the white in some of these vinyls, the white in this sign, right? Like it really only affects the highest whites. The whites affect the highest whites as well as a bunch of other areas, right? So it's also affecting like the wall here and this here and kind of like the in between, right? Kind of like the in between. So you're affecting a wider range of high tones in the image than you would the highlights. The highlights are very focused on just those bright, bright, bright whites. And the same relationship between shadows and blacks, right? Shadows are kind of like everybody, all those mid tones, right? A lot broader of the darker tones, while the blacks, um, they really highlight just the really really deep areas, and as you can see, it's like a lot more intense, right? And in terms of relationship, just make sure as you're using both, you're conscious of how they're affecting the others and you balance them out. And the way that looks like when you balance, right? So, say for example, if I'm going to bring down my contrast, right? I lose a lot of definition in my tones, in my dark tones. So if I bring down contrast, I'll bring down my blacks. That way I can make sure it kind of maintains a balance, right? Same thing if I'm bringing up my shadows, right? I'm gonna bring down my blacks as well, just to kind of make sure that I'm bringing out the details, but I'm not also ruining the relationship between the darks and the whites here, right? So, like, say if I didn't do that, there's obviously a light source that's affecting these people, and when the shadows are up and the blacks are unaffected, you see it creates just like a really like just dry, opaque, and there's no definition, right? Like we see that there's some type of shadow right here on the arm, but there's no representation of that because we sucked out all of the light definition. So you bring out the shadows because we want the detail, and then you bring back in the blacks a little bit so that you can keep the detail, but you're still like promoting like that relationship and maintaining the balance of that relationship between the lights and the darks, right? That makes sense? Am I making sense? Am I being
Yes. Yeah.
okay? Cool, cool. Just making sure we can all follow. So I'm looking here, right? Boom. Highlights are kind of going crazy. Bringing my highlights down, like I said before, not too much. We're mindful, very demure with our adjustments, very micro. All right, bam. So I got the color tone that I think is cool. I got a decent relationship between my lights and my darks. Cool cropping. I think we're straight on this. I like to add a little bit of funk to my image, so I'll probably add some grain or something like that. But we'll do that later. Um, Now, what I want to get to is our curves. We're gonna go to another image where we talk about that. Let me find something outside. Let me see. We got something. we're gonna use one of these. Bet. So I'm gonna copy this, right? Control C, to copy all of my editing settings. On Mac, that's gonna be Command. It's gonna be Command C. Same thing can happen with our for mobile, right? You go to mobile, you hit the three dots up at the top right. Three dots at the top right of the image. You're gonna see copy settings. Boom. And then it's gonna give you a checkbox to select all of the settings you want to copy. um, don't change any of that. It's baseline, very basic. That's kind of like the general settings that you're going to want to copy. Just hit the check bar at the top, copy settings, copied. Now, we're going to go to our next image. I want to get one of these. Boom. Yeah, I like one of these, not for sure. This one. Bam. So, just paste my settings, Commands V, we're in there. As you can see, back and forth. Just add it. As you can see, just like it brought up a little bit of shadows, like the same relationship. And the reason why that's important is because when you're batch editing, um, you're especially if you're shooting a space that has consistent lighting, or even if it's not consistent lighting, it's the same thing. You want to make sure that there is a continuity between your editing, amongst all your images. It's okay to take some, specific liberties to maybe correct this image, or maybe you're cropping this image or whatever, but you don't want to walk away from a shoot where you're shooting multiple, for hours, and a wide variety of subjects and all these different things, but your editing style is inconsistent and it's incongruent. That's another sign of a very amateur photographer, is that you're hired to shoot an event, and then you deliver your photos, and this photo kind of got like an orange tint, this one got like a little green tint, this one's sharper than this one, and like when there's just a disunity and no continuity between like the editing and visual style amongst the images, it's a difficult process for people to relate to the image, and relate to the overall gallery. So as we're editing, right, we spend this time going through and making sure we're color correcting, and we're sharpening, and we're finding the balance between the whatever's. And what we want to do is, we copy those images because we're using that as our template going forward. And what's really cool about Lightroom is that, when you select this, right, this is a room that I shoot often. It's an event that I shoot every week. And, the conditions are consistent. They're consistent enough so that whenever I come up with, the editing that I like and the editing style, what's really cool is you can go up here to your presets tab, and you can just select, like once you have all your settings locked in, and this is the look that you're looking for, you can go to your presets tab, right? And as you can see, these are all my personal presets that I've made for like different events that I have, right? So I have like a very general events tab. I got some stuff that's really for funky stuff, high bias, interview seal, SF is a client, basics, controllerized. These are like some of like my main rooms. And I don't create presets for everything that I shoot, because some rooms are very similar. Um, this is very moody and dark and unique, but there's a bunch of rooms in Atlanta and the places that I shoot that have this very similar style. So broad stuff, kind of works. Um, but as you're, finding yourself shooting unique stuff, or consistently different, or the same stuff, you create your settings. You can go right up in here, hit the plus mark, create a preset, name it, boom. Now you're cooking. Now you're cooking. That way you don't have to go in and do that for every individual image, right? If I wanted to, I can sit this image, can hold my control, hold shift, select the last image in the thing, and then I can literally go in here to photo and paste to the entire selection, and paste all those settings on top of all 100 or whatever so images in this gallery. So just great tool, and great for just getting through that workload, right? So we're gonna go to our next image. So this one we chose, boom, right? We're here. We got our settings pasted, and let's get right to it. So we talked through our color, right? Our corrections, we talked through our light, and what's next is we're gonna kind of go through let's do our curves, right? So what's interesting about the curves, and a lot of people are really intimidated by the curves tab. And the way that it helps me really learn it was understanding that the curves tab and the light tab are really the same thing, right? It's the same thing, right? It's the light tab mixed with the color mixer. And I'm gonna show you how. Right. So when you look at this square, this background image you see with all these like little ridges, with little mountains, whatever. This is what's essentially considered a histogram, right? A histogram, and we're not gonna get to the super nerdy shit, but a histogram is just kind of like the visual representation of data that represents either the amount of light, quality of light, as well as the amount of color and the quality of color in an image, basically, right? You can see it up here as well. This is kind of like letting us know like the amount of greens in comparison to the amount of blues, and how much of those blues are darker, how much of those blues are lighter, how much of the reds are light, and it's just kind of letting you know the visual representation of that stuff. There are people who are really nerdy into like the color correction. That's mainly like in, like high profile movies and type of shit. Like they'll look at this and be like, "Oh, we need to balance like our shit all the way up at the top. We gotta bring it down." We're not doing that. We're not doing anything close to that. We're just looking for what's visually appealing and creating a harmony. But when I say that the curves and the lights tab are the same thing, I'm gonna show you how, right? So, in the same way we talked about how we need to be mindful of adjusting our light, right? So remember we said if you move the highlights, make sure you do something else to kind of like maintain that relationship, because you don't want to create an unbalanced image. What's cool about curves is that it does that for you to an extent, right? So if we were to come down here and we move any part of this curve line, it'll adjust its equal part of those lines. And so the curve kind of creates like a natural transition between the different points that you adjust, right? And the way that this works is that the bottom left corner, this whole region, this is going to be your darkest areas. And as you gradually go up to the top right, there's going to be your brighter areas, right? So just like we have our highlights, shadows, whites, and blacks. When I'm adjusting and whenever I'm using my curves, I like to use points at every one of these intersections. Yes.
Excuse me. Sorry. Can you scroll up some so we can see? Because I'm not
You
sure if it's like that for everyone, but your picture is in front of the
you right.
curves. Like, yes.
You right.
Thank
You right.
you.
Thank you.
No problem.
So yes, and you know what we can actually do? This is what we can actually do. Hold on. Oh good lord. Where's my there we go. Bam. So what we're gonna do, can I do this? Can I do what I want? I don't know if it's gonna let me do what I want. Either way, we'll do it later. Um so as we adjust, right? As we adjust these different things, you saw before, if we just put one plot on it and move it around, it's naturally showing the relationship and how it affects the other points in our histogram, in our light relationship. So if I were to add one point here and I move this, as you can see, it keeps it as an anchor point. And so everything past that, it only is affected minorly, as opposed to areas that don't have any anchor points, right? So what that does is that it kind of creates some guidelines. So it's like, okay, I want to adjust this part of the histogram, but I don't want it to fuck up too much over here. So I'm gonna add this anchor point here. I'm gonna add this anchor point here, and it's a dope way to maintain the relationship that you naturally want to have between your whites and your blacks as you adjust the intensity of your light in different areas. And what I like to do is when I'm doing my curves, I put one on each intersection. And I think it's a good practice for you guys, especially as you're getting understanding this thing, because what it does is it creates the guidelines that we have here. So remember, we got highlights, shadows, whites, blacks. And remember, the further you go up to the top right, the brighter, bottom left, the darker. And so this square, this is our highlights, this is our whites, this is our shadows, this is our blacks. You get what I'm saying? And now that we have an understanding and we're gonna move these things, we can adjust our highlights. And as we can see in our image, we might be adjusting a very small amount, but it's not affecting so much that it's destroying the rest of the image. Same thing with our shadows or our midtones, right? We grab this thing right here in the middle, it's affecting how much? It's affecting our whites and it's affecting our shadows quite a bit. A little bit of our highlights, a little bit of our blacks. And it's just it's a really cool option because like as you can see, instead of using contrast or any of these things to adjust and then having to do a bunch of micro adjustments just to figure it out, when you create these parameters, you just grab here. I want my whole midsection of lighting to kind of like be affected a little bit. You grab this guy, you pull it out, and we can just look at our image, right? It's already kind of creating. It's this one. It's harsh, right? We don't like it necessarily, but what's cool about it is that it's creating a unique thing, and at the very least, it's harsh, but it looks balanced, right? Like there's still a relationship, and it's maintaining a relationship. We don't like that visually at all, but at the very least, we know that it's not like we try to go in, we adjust our blacks, and it's like that shit don't work, right? Our whites are still the same. Nothing works together. So what's cool about this is it gives us an opportunity to get in, just to reflect. It gives us an opportunity to get in, adjust these highlights, whites, blacks, whatever. Any part of that white to that dark to light range, while also simultaneously maintaining the relationship, and then also we can choose to maintain it or choose to create anchor points that minimizes how much is affected, right? And so the more anchor points, the less the line will move when you move other areas, right? So say if I put a anchor point in between each one of these, right? Like just a gang of anchor points. Now when I adjust this, like the lines barely move at all in regards to like the ones that are further away, right? And obviously, you know, when you're creating like a harmonious image to like be something realistic, that's not gonna look well. But if you're doing some weird, cool, artistic shit, like look at this, this is crazy. I love this. This is very cool, right? So, just a very cool thing to play around with. Nothing to be afraid of. Maintain that balance, and then also too, this is the major key for those who are into like that vintagey, smoky, old damaged photo look. It's a cheat code. This is where it's done, right? So you create your anchor points, right? And you take your blacks and you just create like a little J. You bring them up here and you see automatically it's making it mad smoky. Mad smoky. That's even cool itself. Like that to me, that's extremely cool. I love that so much. But what you do is to create that smoky look, you just grab this thing right here, you pull up slightly. And as you can see, it's kind of darkening off. I mean, it's brightening up our darks while maintaining that relationship of how dark they are. Yes, do we have a
Sorry, can you do
question?
that one more time?
Which one? Like showing it?
Yeah. How you got that smoky look? Yeah.
So you see, I'm just pulling my darks up from the left side, right? And then what you can do is, and what I generally like to do, if I know I'm going to add a smoky look to my images, just to keep it from looking too ashy, I'll bring my my midpoint in between my shadows and my darks. And remember, I like to like if you look at it like this is my darks, my blacks, shadows, whites, highlights. If I grab the intersection between those two, right? And I already know I'm going into this edit knowing I'm going to add like a smokier look. I bring this down, right? Just to give it like a darker process. You see that? It's really, really dark. And then I might add one other little anchor point right here. And then I bring up my shadows. Bam. You see that? And honestly, it's a little too harsh. So I'm going to bring this anchor point up a little bit. Bam. Something like that right there. And then to me, it seems a little too contrasty. So now I'm going to go up to my contrast tab and bring that down just a little bit.
Okay, because you moved. So can you move again? Because I can't see the picture again.
Gosh darn it. My big ass head. Make it small.
You're good right there, right there. You're good right there.
Bet. So I'm gonna do that again. So look. Initially I had this down here low and I brought this up, right? So I like this. I bring down I bring down the midsection between my shadows and my blacks because I know I'm going into this edit to add like a smokier vintage look. So to kind of like just reaffirm like the moodiness of it, I like to bring down the midpoint between the shadows of my blacks down enough so that it's really deep and rich. And you can kind of see here, like the blacks are really deep and rich now, right? The colors are a little oversaturated. The contrast is going a little crazy, but we're about to fix that, right? So, let me go back a little bit more. 12 should be good. Bam. So now we have them deep rich. And I'm going to bring up this bottom joint to add the smokiness. Bam. And also, sometimes you might accidentally click it away, right? You're good. Just add another point. Boom. And so I bring up my smokiness. Boom. That's cool. It works. But what I'm noticing is that the contrast between these two are the highlights and lowlights and some of the colors a little bit too much. So I'm just going to bring my anchor point between blacks and the warms and the shadows up a little bit more, like right there. And then I'm probably going to go up here to my contrast and bring down, because that's the issue, right? If we look up, oh damn, hold on, because right now that's the issue that to me that's what I'm having. I'm seeing that there is a contrast relationship that's just a little too harsh between like the red and the brown and the whatevers. So just to make sure I'm balancing my image to make it look a little softer, I'm just gonna bring my contrast down on my lights tab. Boom. And as you can see, as I'm bringing down the contrast, you see how it's softening everything out, and it's like it's helping that relationship look a bit more like realistic. Because look, naturally it's at 0, but because of everything that we did now, the contrast is off. Everything that we did right here in our curves, it throws off the contrast. So all I need to do is just bring this down so that it like brings down the intensity of everything in the image. And so now it's just like a softer, more reasonable look. So I got the image, I got the vintage look, I got the ashy little smoky darks, and then I still kept my whites natural, and then I was able to kind of like help that relationship between like the different colors in the image, right? So just a cool little balance. And you'll see other photographers and maybe some other pros, and you'll watch YouTube videos, and they'll be like, "Man, you want to add that S curve." And honestly, do what you want, first of all. And secondly, they're not shooting the shit you're shooting, right? You know your subject matter, you know the style you really want to illustrate within, your work, and then you know the tone that you want to kind of put forward. So, you just kind of really figure out what that is, mess around, see what makes sense, see what works, and then you play with that. This right here is, I mean, for this shoot and these types of subject matter, I'm often using this. This is the J curve, basically, right? Um, and then you can play around with more things. You can say I want my lights to be a little bit more softer as well. So you can kind of bring your lights down, and as you can see, you can really tell if you look at the hands, right? Like if I bring my hands up, you see like it's taking the whites in there. So I can bring them down to kind of like help with the harshness, maybe help flatten it out. So it's all seasoned to taste. It's all seasoned to taste. But it's just a cool another level of adjustment that you can utilize for the entire range of light within your image, right? That way you're not, tied down to just using these little sliders. You can do something really interesting and creative and fun while using a cool tool that is specifically designed to help you maintain the balance and relationship between all of the lights that are available, right? Cool beans. How do we feel about that? That makes sense? Do we understand?
I'll
I'll
be
be
real.
real.
It
It
Yes.
all
all
boils
boils
down
down
to
to
a
a
phenomenal
phenomenal
photo.
photo
Because
because
at the
at
end
the
of
end
the
of the
day,
day,
all of
all
the
of
stuff
the
that
stuff
you
that you
showed me, I
showed me,
was
I was
like, you
like,
know
you know
what?
what?
He
He
could have
could have
done
done
this
this
with
with
like
like
he
he
could
could
have
have
done
done
all
all
of
of
these
these
filters and
filters and
all of
all
these
of these
effects
effects
or
or
all this
all this
color
color
correction.
correction.
Yeah.
The
The
photo
photo
was
was
still
still
great.
great.
So at
But
the
at
end
the
of
end
the
of the
day,
day,
it
it
boils
boils
down to
down to
composition.
composition.
That's what
It's
I'm getting from
you
this.
come on, you read my mind. That's really what it is. It's you shoot to kill, get your composition solid, because it's correction, right? We don't make the photo in post. We judge it up. We put that sauce on it. You get what I'm saying? It's like it's like pizza, in my opinion, right? I love pizza. I love food. I love to cook. Um, right? You can have the best recipe. You can have the best pan. Like you can have all these cool things to help you make the dish. But if your ingredients suck, you know, it's gonna suck. It's gonna suck. So, sometimes you can have a pizza that's like on an artesian oven, cooked in, the ovens of Mordor, whatever the fuck. But if you have very terrible ingredients, it's not going to be good. And then you can go to the Balkans, and a motherfucker will put a raw tomato on some bread with some salt and a cucumber. But the ingredients are so rich that it's probably one of the best things you ever tasted. So it's like, definitely, these tools are meant to help us bring the life out of good captures that we've taken our time, we were mindful, and we took, had the patience to try and get. But yeah, I can always sit and talk about composition and how important that is. Um, but yeah, and also for this image, what we didn't do first, I didn't correct it. I did for some types. So sometimes I like to go in and get my stuff even. For this shot, and just for like the emotion of it, I'm not trying to crop it to make it even. I actually really enjoy the angle, the Dutch angle of it. I'm going to make it a little bit more um dramatic, and I'm just going to kind of bring in, like I just want to crop in a little bit more, and I kind of want to keep that at an angle because it just feels more, you know, I don't know. I like the uniqueness of having an angle that is just off or slightly askew. You know what I'm saying? Um, but that's just like my own style. So you do what you want to do. Right. So curves bussing, light bussing. We're happy with this. Next, we can go down to our colors tab. Also too, we don't have to go super deep into it because as long as you understand the fundamentals and the essentially like the properties of these curves, you can understand how to use the other portions, right? And so here we got RGB, right? Red, green, blue, which is the combination that creates all of the colors that we have in existence. And in the same way, if we go to the red portion, remember our darkest darks are going to be down here, whitest whites are up here, and you can adjust the amount and the representation of these colors in your work. This is a great place to utilize tint and to add different types of temperature within your stuff. And you'll just to show you really quick, you'll see what I mean. We go right here, bam. We're just adding a cool little tint on top of our image, right? We got cool tints of greens and like this is cool as fuck. And people they're afraid of using this type of stuff, man. But it's like it's really a master fucking like cheat code just to be able to add cool different levels of color and representation within your image. Same here, we got blue and yellows, right? Bam. And in the same way, as we make these adjustments, be conscious of them adjusting other areas. So say if I wanted to add like a cool little tint, right? And remember always whenever I go in here, whenever I'm using my curves, I make sure I put one on each little thing because one, I want to make adjustments that aren't going to, you know, too heavily affect other areas unless I have that specific intent. And then, I lay my plot points, and then now I'm like, okay, my lights are up here, right? My lights are up here. My darks are down here. My shadows are here. My whites are here. What do I want to do, right? If I were looking at this image and I want to add, like, I wanted to have a warmer tone. I wanted to put like an orange tone on top of it that kind of makes it look warmer, right? Um, that's gonna be you gotta experiment sometimes because like I can say I want to bring my lights and like bring these down to the yellows, right? As I'm looking at that, it's not really doing what I want because the areas that I see there aren't as much highlights in this image, right? And I want to put a yellow tint on everything. So what I know is because the majority of this image is dark/black, maybe I need to be down here, right? So as you can see, as I'm adjusting that now, you see it's putting that little orange tint on my work. It's putting that little orange tint on it. Cool, that kind of works, right? Maybe not as much as I wanted to. Let me try it right here in the mids, right? Even better. That's a cool look. The fact that it's adding those colors right in this little area, like this because it's affecting our whites as well as our shadows. So it's kind of like a cool mix between the two, right? So and I wouldn't want to do it too much. I would probably do it slightly, bam. And then what we understand is some of these colors are combinations of different colors. So if I want to put these in the yellow, it's yellow, but it's also kind of green, right? It's kind of green. So we're gonna go over to the red, and then like let's see if we can add some to the red side to kind of like help make it really balanced. Right? So we want to add some yellow to it, but we want to add a little bit of red to it as well, just to kind of really make it look like see something like that. Like you see that kind of tough. Kind of tough. Now it's adding too much red into the dark areas that I don't want. So what we got to do, right? We're going to add another anchor point just to keep it from going too crazy on our dark side. And I like that. We just want just a little red. Same thing here, right? Let's add another anchor point. Pull that in. We're just gonna put a little red here. Bam. Cool little effect. Like, honest to God, this is the funnest shit because it's like you're really just doing funky stuff. Because of the type of shot that this is, we obviously aren't gonna do nothing like this because we want to create a better looking, more harmonious image for this particular client. But for my own personal work, man, I'll be in here doing all type of weird stuff. Whatever you can. Like, look at this, is hard. Like, this is just so hard, you know? And just like I'm telling you, just the best thing that you can do is just to get in here and mess around and see what works. Like, this is cool. I like this a lot. Right? We can probably get back in here and just maybe do some weird stuff now with the exposure and we'll go up a little bit higher and then we'll bring up our contrast, bring our shadows down. And
Can I jump in?
please do.
I'm so sorry to interrupt.
No problem.
I know we are at time. I want to respect everybody's time. But if I could just drop this little bug in there.
Please.
Could we possibly get a photo that you felt that you had a difficult time editing, or you felt like, I don't really know what to do with this photo? I would love to see what you do in a situation where you're like,
Where I'm just like, dang, I'm having a tough time.
Yes, because it's great to see this. We know you're great. All your photos, literally, you can do this in your sleep.
I can do that.
Where did you struggle?
I can tell you, I can do that. Let me think. Where did I struggle?
Right. Where did you struggle? Because I haven't seen it yet.
Hold on now. Honestly, hold on. I can show you. To be you and I mean this humbly. And I swear to you, I shot Slow Drag recently. It's an event. I'm not sure who's familiar with it, but I shot this event called Slow Drag, and it's like at this venue called Atlanta.
Is it like Super Blue?
Yeah.
Super Blue. And I saw it on Instagram or TikTok. I'm sorry.
Yes.
Sorry. Yeah, I saw it.
Man, that was a very tough shoot for me. Now everyone has been telling me how much they love these photos, and it's great. And I'm glad that I was able to like get the shots that people resonated with. But this was not an easy room to shoot whatsoever. Let me see if I can pull them up in Lightroom. And actually that's a good it's a good thing that we can talk about those there because we can get into our colors tab a little bit as well. You know what? Before we do that, let me just talk a little bit more about the colors before we do that. So you guys, we talked about the curves. We understand same relationship as we use our light curves. Same thing with our RGB. Get in there, honestly, have fun, mess around because it's going to be extremely unique stuff that you'll find when you're grading those images, right? So if we go down to our colors tab, right? Color mixer, very self-explanatory, very upfront in terms of like what this is. You have your different colors, and all of these are represented in every image in some way, right? So we got our greens right here, right? You see we got some green stuff. Maybe some of her pants would also be represented in green. If we were to select the greens, it isolates the control over that color. So now we can go in, we can bring our saturation up, we can bring it down. And as you can see, look, the green, we're adjusting just the green. We adjust the saturation or the luminance. The luminance is the amount of darkness and brightness within that color. Saturation is it's the amount of that color, how much of that color is present. That way, that's why if we were to bring down the saturation in this image, you'll see that there is no color. Now, one thing that people tend to overlook is that there's a big difference between saturation and vibrance. They're not the same. They're not synonymous. If I were to bring my vibrance down, it looks like it's monochromatic, but the colors are still there, just very faint. But as opposed, saturation when we come down is black and white, right? The difference is that saturation is the amount of color in an image, while vibrance is the intensity of that color in the image, with the exception of skin tones, right? What's cool is that because it gives us the opportunity to bring up the brightness and saturation of colors without adjusting the skin tones. Now, this image isn't a good representation because of how much uh color in this image are kind of like the same color pretty much. So it's trying to separate the skin tones, but it's having a difficult time because pretty much everything in this shot is damn near the same type of brown, right? And this is just like a really cool thing to mess around with because it gives you an opportunity to not only adjust and isolate specific colors within an image, but it can also give you the ability to change the colors within the image as well. So you can change the hue from this orange. We can go right here, give it like a little cool, greenish tint, or we can go heavy on the other side, add a red, bring down the saturation to make it balanced, bring up the luminance. Like, just like we said before, we make an adjustment, you have to make other accommodating adjustments to make sure that the balance is maintained, right? So we kind of change the color right there. Cool, right? And that just goes for everything. And it's a really cool thing to mess around with as you're playing with um, other colors. And what's cool is that you have this target adjustment mixer. So if you're not entirely certain what color you're trying to adjust, you just use your target adjuster, click that color, boom, right? And now what it gives you is it gives you the option to kind of get in here, and now you can adjust just that color, right? You have that color selected basically, right? Saturation, luminance, yada yada. And it just helps you find out what that color is, right? If you go to that color picker again, let's see if we go in here. Get out of here. Oh no. Do that again. We hit our color selector, hit our green, and like as you can see, we just click and hold, and now we can go in here. Boom. Saturation, we go to our luminance, click and hold, up and down, left and right. It's a cool tool that we can use like on the fly. So we use our color picker. That way you can kind of like fly in between it without having to go in and like discover what colors are what. We can just use it like in that moment, which is really cool. Really, just really dope, efficient functionality, right? Um, but yep, have fun with that as well. We're not gonna get into any color grading. Get rid of you. Not that deep. Um, but yes. So, any questions? Any concerns? Any of that didn't make sense so far? Cool beans. So I'm gonna bring up those shots for my man Kiri, just to let you so we can talk a little bit about that, right? So we're gonna go to all photos because I don't remember the date. Maybe no, it's 2025. What was it? What's September? This was in August, I guess. Go to August. I think it was like August 14th. No, 16th. Yes, 16th. Bet. Um. Oh Lord, Jesus fire. Oh, I did. Oh, these were on the same day. I forgot. Jeez Louise. Um. So these images were really difficult for me, or just to shoot in general, because what I found was I mean just the color, man. The color is heavy. It was really dark, and um, man, being able to track focus, while having a decent exposure, while also trying to make sure I don't have too much uh like noise in my image because my ISO was so high. Like these were some that were pretty difficult to kind of like figure out. Let me see if I can find one that was really hard to kind of like get. Um, these shots are always going to be tough for me because of how strong the contrast is between the lights and the darks. So it's like you got these lights that are really bright, and honestly, I don't like this still. Right? Like I would love to be able to maintain the detail and the Henny sign and when I look at a shot like this, like these lights are just so distracting because it's not like bright blue. Like this ain't bright blue. This is white. This is just straight white. And the contrast is just not my I'm just not a fan, right? So if we look at the original image, right? Look at that. Like the haze, bro, like the blues and like the blue it creates such a strong haze over all of my darks and just like no matter how sharp your glass is, bro, like that haze makes such a fuzzy and soft image. And I'm already shooting at a super high ISO. So like I just remember looking at these shots and I've shot rooms like this so much before. Like I just knew what it was going into the room. I was like, God damn, this is about to be terrible. Um But since I knew it was going to be terrible, I just didn't give it. I honestly just was. It helped me ignore everything else except good composition, because I was like, I know I'm not going to be able to get a bunch of super sharp, perfect, flawlessly sharp images. So I was like, I'm just going to focus on composition. That's going to be my heavy. That's going to be, the heavy lifter in this relationship. But yeah, man, like I'm just looking at it now, but like, look at these details, insane, insane. And so as you can see, what I did was, I went really heavy on one, taking away some of that blue. Like the blues were just intense, so I needed to bring that all the way down. So if we go over here,
Do you
as you,
have your camera settings? Like, can you access your camera settings in Lightroom, like so you can see your ISO and all that? Because, like I
um,
said, these photos look like they're already ready.
I
Like,
I appreciate it. Let me see. I maybe I'm sure I'm sure you can, because all the settings and the information is there. I just don't. I never look at it in Lightroom though. Let's see if we can find it.
I'm just, the only reason why I ask is because I'm curious about your ISO, because I told you since our first class, like, I'm just very self conscious when it comes to noisy photos.
Mhm.
And this, I see a little noise in this photo, but it looks great. Like, it doesn't bother me. Like, it looks
Because I'm not gonna,
pictorial.
and because you know what it was. What I did was, it's like one of those things to where it's like, if you know you about to get hit, don't try not to get hit. Just run at it, right? You run at it, and I knew I was gonna get fucked up with the noise, so I was just like, all right, I'm gonna lean into it. I'm gonna lean into it, and I made sure my post production style catered to that by adding. Listen, funny enough, when I know I have a lot of noise on the image, I'm like, bet I'm gonna add grain. I'm gonna add more grain, because I don't know. You drown it. I drowned the imperfection in the image with style.
Can I see what it looks like when you add grain? Because I never thought to do that, but I know exactly what you mean.
So you
Wow,
can
that's crazy. I know that guy.
so you
But
can
could you add? Yeah, let me see
so
what
you
that
can
looks
see
like.
it. You can low key see it right here, right? So look, hold on. Let me zoom in a little bit more so you can really see the difference. So what I did was, right, I knew I wasn't going to be able to get definition in the
Mhm.
images because of how high my ISO was, and also how much I'm losing the darkness. So if you see my curves, I'm losing definition. So right, I bring up the I make it smoky to kind of like remove the definition, right? So I'm like, let me not try to get detail out of something that has no detail, right? Or has minimal detail. I'm just gonna lean into just like making it a vibe. Um, so just an example. This is it without the grain. This is with grain, without the grain. You see that?
Mm.
You see that? This is a
So
pasty,
what made you choose? What made you go with the grain then? Because now I don't know. Like,
because
does that boil down to style or?
it is. I put the grain on it because now it looks like it's grainy on purpose rather than inefficiency from my
Okay, makes
gear,
sense.
right? It's like it's like it's like if you accidentally put too much water in your noodles, man, make some soup, right? You might as well make some soup. I can't take the water out, right? So I just added more and I drowned it. And then what I did was, like, say if I bring my grain down, and then I'll show you what this looks like without my curves, right? Without the curves, you see there's like subtle detail, but it's not full detail. It's like it looks like a lot of missed detail. So what I did with my curves is I just said fuck it, and I honestly just drowned my details out more. You can really look
Question about the
tell.
curves. When you
Mhm.
did the curves, like, did you have to manually go and do those curves, or did they change when you changed your saturation, your whites, your blacks, and all of that, or was that a separate thing that you had to change?
So these up here with the lights and the sliders, I
Okay, yeah,
adjusted
those are separate.
those. I
Okay,
adjusted those separately, but you can see the
got it.
relationship of the curves. This curve is only there because of where I put my points. I didn't want to have an anchor point that maintained this because I didn't want it to have like that type of definition. I
Yeah.
wanted to really relinquish the image to the softer, stylistic, like older image, right? So I didn't want to have a bunch of anchor points. I really wanted it to just be like whatever I do here is going to affect a lot of the image. So as you can see, and you can really tell that I wasn't trying to create fine details or fine adjustments, because if that were the case, I would have had a lot more anchor points that kept me from adjusting the majority of the image. Um, And then also too, you can tell I brought my contrast up, because if I bring my contrast down, what you see is, it's showing more of the differences in the detail, right? It's separating those details, and I didn't want to separate them. So by bringing up my contrast, I'm just meshing everything together. Like I'm literally smushing it all together, right? You see that? There's no difference or dynamic range between my darks and my lights. So really, I kid you not, when I realized that the details weren't what I'm going to be able to get from these images, I just completely went away from getting details and went and leaned more into
Lean into the grain.
lean
That
into the
makes so much.
grain and the vibe, grain and the vibe, right? So I added my grain, boom, right, and that's really how I went to with adjusted for the entire image. And then also, what was really going to help me too was like, man, I really had to tone down this blue. The blue was fucking me up, right? So
See,
like,
I
if you
thought
look,
that people would have leaned into the blue because
no, because
that's
the
I'm used to dealing with blues and
yeah,
purples, and those drive me crazy, and reds.
but that's I think what a lot of people realize they don't realize is that how much our brains ignore shit, right? So like, you might be in a room that's really really blue, and you see the blue, but it's not as intense as your camera might initially interpret it, right? Like, if I look at the original image, like our
Oh
our
wow,
like,
that's the color I'm used to dealing with. That hue right there
you
is
get
what
what
I'm
I'm
used to
saying?
dealing with. It drives me insane.
It's strong, bro. It's strong and it's overbearing,
Yeah.
because of the haze that it creates, and it's just like not a natural look. And our brains don't like it. Don't look like this in person. It's very very blue, but like, we don't see the intensity of these colors like this. So what I need to do is, when I'm adjusting this image, is I need to bring down the intensity to make it look more realistic, or just kind of go, a bit more ethereal, or some type of look that's stylistic that creates a more harmonious shot. So like, for this image, man, I had to really go in. If you look at my color mixer, I literally was in here spanking every individual color. You can tell what was adjusted by having, if there's a dot underneath it. So I had to do something to each one of these colors. You know, like, if we look at the other, like, look, for example, right? We'll go to like another. These are another images that I shot. This is another shoot I did literally the like earlier that day, right? So for example, let's find an image, like a cool image. Uh,
While you looking for that, it's just interesting. Because I was just saying, like, I shoot at I shoot at shoot round. Well, I told you that, and it's mostly purple all the time. So
Yeah.
your original image that you had, that was so crazy to me. How I couldn't even tell that it was initially purple and it wasn't
right.
actually blue.
No, that's facts. That's facts. It takes a lot,
So
bro.
like that's
Sometimes.
what you do for that. Because I know you said that you do templates for the parties that you do. So that blue that you did was for that specific party, correct?
I didn't have I really didn't have a template for that shot, because I don't shoot that room that often.
That's
Um,
crazy. You just crazy.
but and even though I have templates for different events, quote unquote, they're templates for different events, but they're also templates just for like that lighting scenario. Because there's a bunch of, like, I have a controllerized uh folder with like a bunch of different presets for like different areas of that room. But I might be in another room and I'm like, oh, this is like controllerized. Boom, I can just go to there and use that as like
Mm.
use that as the basis, and then I might go in and create micro adjustments and then use those again. I'm gonna show you how I do that with it when we goes back to the next image. But this is an image I shot earlier that day, right? I used a flash. Just look at this. Look at the difference of of labor, right? I didn't do anything with my colors. All I did was a little bit of sharpness, some clarity, no grain, sharpness, luminance, 555, -10, -0.8. Like, didn't touch anything in my temperature, none of my tint, because the conditions were just so comfortable. I didn't really have to do. All I did was correct, like literally just a little bit of brightness. This is before and after. Little brightness, little sharpness. That's it. That's it. And then for this image, it's just like, it was labor. When I tell you, it was labor intensive. Now, of course, it wasn't like a bunch of stuff that I had to do for each image. Once I got my groove, I was able to copy and paste. And as you can see here, like, really all I did was I brought my saturation down on my blues, and I brought it to a color that I thought was a bit more easy palatable, right? Like that purplish kind of, like, this is almost violet. This is really like violet. It's not necessarily blue, right? It's violet, when people walk into this space, they go like, "Oh, this is a blue. The room is blue. The room was violet. I don't like the violet. I don't like how that looks." So I was like, maybe I'm gonna make it blue. Blue looks color. It looks cooler. It's deeper. It's like a bit more romantic and intimate, right? So as you can see, I kind of brought my saturation down just to make sure like that relationship was still natural, right? Same thing for my purples. Like these purples back here were tripping, like tripping. So I got back here, brought down the saturation in my magentas, brought down the saturation in my purples. Same thing with my reds, kind of brought them a little bit more over to the warmer side. With my oranges, brought everything towards the purple. Because I knew I was like, I'm shooting a blue room. To really make it look blue, I need to get rid of all the colors that aren't as blue as I want them to be. Now I can't get rid of all the purples because that'll look crazy, right? Like if I get rid of the purples and like it just won't, it just looks unnatural. So because they have to be there, I'll adjust them. I mean, I'll cater to them, but you can't. All the other colors, like I did not need all those other colors, distracting. Um, but yeah, no, this would definitely be an example of like a tough room and just like a tough edit to make, right? Like these were all very, it just wasn't as comfortable, But like I said, I'm very used to being uncomfortable when it comes to how I shoot and just the situations that I'm in, and I have contingencies for all types of discomfort, right? It's like okay, subject matter is tough, or colors are going to be
Right
tough.
here, it's crazy to me. Like, what are your settings? Because I'm like, is it like, is this like a 2.8 aperture? Like, what is this? I'm thinking that you cropped it for the Instagram and then you didn't.
No, I mean,
Is
but here,
this what it look like, bro, what is
I
the
mean,
sauce?
but that's here's the thing. But here's the thing, man. The sauce, and I mean this humbly, but it's like I'm the sauce. It's not the
You
settings,
are, you
but
are.
but I'm saying it's not the settings. It's not the settings. The settings help for sure. But this shot is good. Hold on, I'm gonna show you another shot. Hold on, let me show you something. Oh yeah, so I got the raws here, right? So I think I got this. I want to get the same. I want to get to that same image if I can. If not, we'll be okay. Okay, we'll pick anyone. Anyone is good enough, right? So let's look at this shot right here. Bam. Um, Same settings, same place, right? This one's a better image, and it's not because if these are the same settings, right? Why is this one a better image? You feel me? Like it's not the settings, bro. It's not the settings. The helps. The settings can
No,
help.
it's absolutely you.
Yeah,
It's never without a doubt. It's always you. It's the
but it's
composition. Absolutely.
and it's partially me too, but it's also it's the subject matter for sure. It's the subject matter. It's the angle. It's the and not just like the angle that I chose, but it's the angle that I chose to stay in and be patient in. Right? It's the timing because I was trying to find it. I took like several shots in this position, and that was just one of the only ones that worked for real. And like here's another example. Right? Boom. Same couple. Same couple. Right? Like I saw some good chemistry. I found some good energy that they had there. And oh, here we go. Here they are. Bam. So I saw her already somewhere else, and I saw Homeboy somewhere else. And like in my mind, I consciously was like, all right, I need to keep an eye on these folks. And I just kind of like stuck around, and I just kept shooting.
Oh, you followed them.
I
Okay,
followed
see,
them.
that is where I struggle is following people. Like I feel like I gotta like, ooh, snap and then run. Like I don't know if that's my social anxiety kicking in or what. But
Yep.
yes, like I'm watching like you dance with these people.
Like
Like
look at this.
what?
Like look at this. This is a terrible image. These do not work. These images. Look,
They're
even
not terrible. It's only because like his face is misspoke is not blurred. You told me that.
yes, and that's
Right?
yeah, exactly.
Okay.
You're correct. You're correct. And that's the thing is like it's small things. It's small things that make an image really good. And when you find that moment, you get lucky and you get a couple of them all together. Like I had settings were cool, right? But the composition wasn't good, right? Composition is good. The focus wasn't good, right? Settings were off. Whatever. You get those moments. You get in those spaces. You shoot. You be patient, and then you might get lucky, and you might catch an image that's like, everything's kind of clicking here, right? But I'm showing you all this just to understand. Like, I'm not out here firing off bangers left and right. It's like it's trial and error throughout the entire night, and then like I just go through and I make my selection process, right? I pick the images that work, and then I just adjust based on that, right? And then I get into my post, and then my post can really bring out the power of a shot that I got that was successful. But there's a lot of dookie in here, you know. There's a lot of trash, man. But also too, of course, understand, just different parts of our journey as well. I have even my tough times. I have a lot of tough times when I shoot, but I have fundamentals, and I have skill sets that I always can lean on to create something out of a bad situation, and that's what's going to be your key. That's what's going to be your key. Just like having a style, right? So, for example, if we go back to our shot that we were working on a little bit earlier, and we're going to finish this up pretty quick because we already been on this for about an hour and a half. I don't want to wait. I don't want to waste too much time. But so, like, we're going to go back to our shots from the high bias event, right? So, boom. Where's my lady? Bam. So we got a cool little shot, and just to show you how I move with my presets. And I like to use the presets, especially for this room, because number one, there's a continuity and a story, not only from the photos from this night, but from the photos from every night that we do. So I want to make sure that there is a congruency amongst all the galleries over time as like a historian of a space. So I'm gonna go back to my original shot, and we're gonna work through my through the presets there. Get out of here, bro. My computer's running slow for whatever reason. So bam. So we did like a little rough edit for this one, but I'm usually starting off with my joints. So I have three main ones that I like to use for high bias. I have my black and white process, then I have a main film process, and then I have a vintage process that's really good for color. I have one that's for like lower saturated colors, and I have one for like a higher saturation of colors. And I like to go with that one mostly. And as you can see, this one's very, very crunchy. I got my grain already booted up. You feel me? Like, look, no grain. So I'm a big fan of that. I'm a big fan of how that looks in the space. So I got that. This one works pretty well. Copy. Now, generally, when I'm working like this on this high volume, I hit my copy, and I go in and I know the vibe, the color tones, the relationships, the curves for the most part. I want those all to stay the same. So I'm going in here, and then I'm like pasting over everything. And then once I paste over everything, then I just go through and I make the micro adjustments as needed, right? We're not going to paste over everything now because it takes a couple minutes for it to actually process, but we're going to pretend like it's all pasted, right? So, oh, excuse me. Damn. Like an air bubble got stuck in my trachea. Okay. So, say this one's already there. Boom. That one's pasted. Now, look, that's the pasted setting that I had on it. This does not work. This does not work. There is a level of, come on, man, get out of here. There's a level of, like detail that is very much not working for this image. Very crunchy. So I'm probably just going to come down, bring down my contrast. I don't want to change up some of the fundamental elements of this image, like the color. So I'm just going to kind of come down here, bring down my shadows, bring down contrast. Just make it look, want to bring back that life. I think maybe the texture, I'll bring down the texture down a little bit, bring up my clarity. Maybe bring down the grain just a little bit, sharpness a little bit, because it was very crunchy on her. It was very crunchy. So I'm probably gonna come back in here, bring my exposure up. I'm okay with that. Bring down my contrast down a little bit more. Back one down on the exposure, couple down on the shadow, back up on the exposure, and that happens a lot. If you were to watch me, for anyone who's like watched, sometimes I'll hop online and I'll just edit, and just like share my screen. I'm moving very slow. When I'm editing, I'm just kind of like boom, 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 boom. I'm going up and down. There's a lot of back and forth sometimes. Um, but I'm cool with this image. I'm cool with this. So I'm copying this. Bam, I go to the next one. Cause I know same shot, same image, same area. I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. I'm gonna bring the exposure up a little bit more. Bring up the blacks. Bring up the shadows. Bring up the contrast. Yeah, I'm cool with that. So let's go down in here. Let's see what's going on with these oranges. See if I can bring the orange back a little bit. Bring up the luminance, kinda. And I actually maybe want to bring my orange and make it a little bit more red, not too much. And then maybe put a little bit more blue on the whole image. Bring down to my temperature. Come down one more. We're gonna go back up one more. Down on exposure. I'm okay with that. Before, after, before, after. And I'm intentionally kind of giving it a rougher, vintage, like damaged photo look, because that's just the aesthetic for this event. Same thing here. I'm gonna post. I'm gonna paste the image settings. I'm just gonna bring up my exposure. Don't need to do too much right here. Come on now. Let's go back in here. There it is. Computer's tripping. Go to before, after. I'm gonna bring my contrast up, bring my exposure down, shadows up a little bit, and I think I'm going to bring down some of the grain. Some of the grain for some of these like really darker images can really cause like a lot more damage than I'm comfortable with. Yeah. Just contrast a little more exposure. Yeah, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that. It's a better image. Paste that. Bring down my exposure. Bring down my shadows. Bring down the contrast. Boom, boom, boom. I'm just balancing because sometimes I'll paste and I have different settings in my camera, and so sometimes I'm just adjusting to the settings that were in the camera at the time, right? So that last image I was exposing way down, and for this one I'm exposing a lot higher. So I don't need it to be up that high. I don't need my exposure or my settings here to be up that high. So I'm gonna copy that. Boom. This one's cool. Paste that. Bring up my exposure a little bit. Bring up my contrast a little bit. Down on my shadows. Because I like this. I like the darkness around her. Because she has a cool little rim light or whatever. Let me see this. I'm gonna bring down these greens a little bit. I don't want it to be too green in the tint. That's good. Bam. Copy that. Paste this. Boom. Too bright. Right here on my exposure. Bam. Bam. Copy that. Go to the next one. Paste. That's pretty good. Paste. I'm okay with that. Paste. Let's keep moving. Paste. Well, actually, I don't like this shot. We're going to just delete it. Get it out of there. Boom. This one's cool. I like this. Automatically, I kind of feel like I want to see this in black and white. I already got my preset for black and white set up. I hit that. The preset's too bright. Go down to exposure. Just bring it down. Bring it down. That's cool. Eyes closed. As much as I can, I like to get in on those types of images because it's intimate. More emotion, the better. Bam. Cool. This one's cool. Paste. Keep it moving. Paste. Keep it moving. Paste. Let's make this a little bit brighter. Keep it moving. This is cool. Paste. Brighter. And so look, we're not dealing with a human, right? So because we're not dealing with a human, we have a little bit more room to really lock in on some sharpness. Oops, my bad. We have a really good opportunity to lock in on some sharpness because when you're humans, you know, you want to stay away from things that are really rigid. But like we talked about with the clarity tab, but there's no humans here. So really, if we go in our clarity, it just kind of makes it look sharper without it making it look crazy. Because, you know, the humans, if someone's face really makes it look wild. But we can throw our clarity up. Obviously, I wouldn't probably do all the way up most of the time, even though this is not bad. It's not bad. I don't mind it. but we got a lot more room to kind of like use that clarity and like our sharpening tools when we're using non-human subject matter because it doesn't look as harsh. And it also can be really cool just for like articulating details and like the glass or the fruit, whatever. But just also keep in mind that it's doing that for everything else. So it's sharpening the glass and the fruit, but it's also sharpening like the stains on the thing or whatever. And you know, that's something you want to kind of be mindful of as you're moving. And then, you know, same thing here. Oop, I copied them. Go back, copy this. Bam. Paste that. Cool beans. Cool little crop. Bam. And real quick before we finish, we can talk a little bit about it. We talked about it in our intermediate class, and we'll talk about it just a little bit here. But so even for something like this, right? We got these images and these artifacts that don't really work for us. What's cool about Lightroom, remarkable tools for removing spots, blemishes, and all types of cool stuff. And you have what's your remove tool, which is for removing. It's more AI based, so that one's a little bit more intensive. Healing, that's like a really quick thing. Like it uses the area around it to just plug in areas, um, and like shows, and you can see the demo of it right above. So it takes the texture and you know um, the patterns or whatever is around the image you're trying to adjust, and it uses those things as data for replacing it. And then you have your clone tool, which is essentially like you can use that to add more elements into a piece that aren't there, and you can see it right here, just like this cool little um you know cool little animation that kind of really shows you how it can be used, right? So for this one, we are removing, we're not I mean, we could heal because we do have a lot of area around it that could be useful for replacing this area. And so it's just as simple as like clicking the area you're trying to get rid of, right? Bam. And then automatically it kind of like takes and looks to replace that image with areas around it and using the data from what's around it to replace it with similar textures. This one's funky. It can be funky, so sometimes it takes a little bit of like trial and error. Bam, good enough. This one's not super distracting, but it's good. It's distracting enough to where I want to get rid of it. It doesn't work. Yeah. So sometimes just it's a matter of just like popping in, messing around, doing different stuff, and sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't, and sometimes you might need to make an adjustment to help it work better.
I'm sorry, I had to step away when you switched the picture. Okay, so wait, this picture. What was the setup like? So was this staged? Was this at a party?
No, this wasn't staged. It was that same event as like the other folks.
Were you anticipating this? Were you sitting by the bar like waiting for the like? How did you? Because that's
I
literally like.
I sat behind this dude for maybe 2 minutes. Maybe 2 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah, I sat behind him for a long time, like literally just angled at his cup because this is the shot I wanted. This is the shot I wanted. The cup by itself was cool. I can get that
You
anywhere,
still got
anytime.
it.
I still got it. No, I got it for sure. This is the actual shot. I zoomed in just for the video, for the editing. But this is the shot. This is the shot I wanted. This is what I needed. And so I just sat behind him for a good amount of time, waited for him to reach out and grab it, and then I got to work. But yeah, no, it was just really, 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 really fun room to shoot, man. Um, for those who missed the in-person class, there were some other details for the intermediate, especially that we talked about when it came to like the spot removal and the masking tool. We don't have time to get into that tonight because we've been on this shit for a long time. But we may do another recap. I'm going to upload this video to YouTube for anyone who needs to go back over and watch it again. And then I'm going to do another video that's just for masking and spot removal. But yeah, anyone have any other questions? We're not going to do the feedback tonight just because of how long this class has already gone so far. And yeah, how do we feel?
You said the video. You said the videos that you're gonna do for the spot removal, is that gonna be on Discord or are you gonna put that on YouTube?
I'm putting it on YouTube, but I'm gonna upload everything to Discord. All the videos in our Discord from now on are going to be just links to the YouTube channel.
Gotcha.
Yep. And I'll upload all of those. But Yeah, I'm gonna do a video on just the spot removal and masking. Um, how do y'all do y'all think should I do a video on just the curves?
That would be hard
Okay.
to see the differences, especially when you have the red, blue, and green curves as well, to see how it can change for like a creative side.
I'll do that. Yeah, I'm gonna do a video just for like artsy fartsy funky shit, and then because we're editing for just like the basic neutral stuff, but I'm gonna do one video that's just for like when you trying to put your foot in some shit, how that looks.
Put the knee in it.
Exactly.
So
Exactly. But yeah, okay. So thank y'all so much. I think this was a good night. Hopefully I didn't talk too fast or go on too many tangents. Just reach out for any of those little details, or if you want to lock in on some stuff, feel free as well. Every now and then some people will hit me to just like hop on a one-on-one call, or we might do a small breakout session. I still need to do another one for the other joint. Ugh. But either way, hit me, let me know. I will see y'all later. Thank you again, as always, for being present. Um, yeah. Did anyone else have anything else they needed?
if we were cooking while you were talking, we could put it in the feedback chat.
Let me see it right now. Yes.
Oh,
If you if
okay,
you
one second.
if you were cooking while we were doing this, I need to see it. Dead homies.
Okay.
I need to see all of it. That's whole hard. Who else was cooking while we were in this session? Anybody? Shoot.
Just
What was the
Just
question?
you.
I missed that. What was the question?
I made some slight adjustments to some of the stuff that I shot last night.
Cool. I would love to see it. I would love to see it. I would love to see what y'all got, man. Yeah, because Stead came out last night when we were shooting at High Bias, and he shot in the same room. So these weren't the shots from last night, but these are some shots the same place. I'm really excited to see how you had some fire, cuz. I'm not gonna hold you.
Appreciate that. Let's see if I can get down right quick. See, say. No, come on. Let's see. They downloaded right now, so it's just
Okay.
gonna be one moment.
No worries. Take your time. Take your time.
Are we dropping it in the feedback chat?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
I'm waiting on that. I'm waiting on that.
Oh my gosh.
Waiting on that. I need that.
Hell no.
I gotta figure out what I'm gonna do with my life. I gotta eat something. Jesus, be events.
There goes the 6.
Okay, bet.
Those
Can,
are done.
can I share it with the class?
Yeah, if you want to, for sure. After just going through Sunday and just listening today and working side by side, Yeah, I was really taking in what was said.
Nice, nice. I already can see like the richness, you know. Yeah, this was fire. And that's what it's about, man. Because it's like, the images that we take sometimes, they just really soften out the details, and our cameras aren't able to. They're not able to remove distraction the way our eyes and our brains are. So utilizing Lightroom and other editing softwares to kind of like add emphasis, or minimize distractions, or maybe bring down the intensity of colors, or bring up the intensity of colors that may have been lost or unnaturally added in a ways that our eyes don't. Like, that's what it's for. Oh, it's just strong, dude. These are so fire. This one is crazy. This one is tough. This one is so tough. Y'all sending these to AC, right? I don't get beat up. Don't, man. Y'all better be sending
I
these.
will send them.
All right now.
I had to edit them.
All right now.
I did. I had to edit. What is this? Oof, it's like 70 photos.
Damn, I feel that. Okay, steady. Nice,
Ooh.
nice, nice. I mean, great exposure, bro. Like, you're like, I can tell you right now, bro. Like, this is not an easy room to shoot, bro. It's very dark. You know, lots of compromises that have to be made sometimes, bro. But you did this. Nice, great shots. Great work, man. Great work. Yeah, dude. Listen,
Thank you.
I'm gonna create another breakout session. I'm gonna do a video. I'm gonna do a video. I might create a breakout session. Anyone can pull up, but I'm gonna be recording specifically that video for curves, so that we can have a little bit more deep dive on how that works and what's in there. But yeah, man, I appreciate y'all so much, dude. This is such a fun thing, such an entertaining thing. It's a good time. Um, but yeah, man, y'all have a great night. I will see y'all Sunday. Oh, also too, I'm literally about to finish. I'm about to drop the flyer right now. Photo walk Saturday evening.
Saturday evening photo.
Saturday evening photo walk. It's very impromptu because like I didn't plan it as properly. I wasn't sure if I was even going to be able to do it. I thought I was going to go shoot some shit. Um, but yeah, Saturday evening photo walk. We're going to probably most likely be at like probably on the bridge. We might go to the bridge over there by Northside Drive, right above like 75, Highway 75, next to that Kroger. I'm gonna drop all the info soon, but because I don't want to go nowhere where it's super hot. But I think that'd be a good spot. And it'll just be the folks who can make it. It's not gonna be super crazy. That's not one of the ones that we charge for. It's just gonna be the regular photo walk, just to start doing it because I don't want to keep putting it off. All right, ready? Break. Thank y'all. Thank y'all. Rest easy, man. I'll see y'all soon. All right. Peace.